Hello and welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live. My name is Daniel Caw. I'm delighted to be joined by Record Sports Gavin Berry and Keith Jackson, and all the way from Poland, Scott Mcdermott. Guys, how are you?
Good.
Good, thanks.
You're no more sincere tonight with you're delighted to be here with us, but carry on. In fact, you know what? We should really go straight to Scott, shouldn't we?
I was going to say, I'm going to ignore your cynicism, Keith. And Scott, ahead of the Rangers kick-off.
Get me too, Daniel. Just come.
Exactly. We're the best ones anyway. Yeah. The Rangers team has dropped ahead of their crucial tie against Dynamo Kiev. What do you make of the team, Scott?
Well, the name that sticks out immediately is obviously Ross McCausland coming in to start, which we talk about coming from nowhere. I was surprised that McCausland wasn't on the bench at Tynecastle on Saturday. Wasn't involved at all. He was sitting in the stand at Tynecastle, but he's come straight in, massive Champions League qualifier. I expected Leon Balogun to come in for Ben Davies at the back after replacing him against Hearts. Balogun got put up last night at the press conference, which is always a wee sign that he's maybe going to play.
You sold us a pup there. You sold us a pup. You told us it was going to be Robin Proper.
I was just giving you the information I had.
Tough information.
Believe me, I was as surprised as anybody. Which you can probably tell with my questions to Leon Balogun.
We'll come to that in a minute.
Oh man! So Balogun expected to come in, but McCausland, I didn't see that coming at all, Daniel. So I'm pretty surprised. And if you'd have said to any Rangers fan end of last season, don't worry, you'll get a Champions League qualifier with Dynamo Kiev at the start of next season. Your two wingers will be Scott Wright and Ross McCausland. I think you could have probably knocked him down with a feather.
No. Keith, we were saying last night, Cherney, I don't know, it seems
what we said last night, and I don't know how many times we said it, Daniel, and it's a bit of a head scratcher, a bit like your tracky top there. I don't know how many times we used that phrase last night, that it's a head scratcher. It doesn't seem to make sense. And I look at this starting 11 for this match of just enormous consequence for Rangers, and I'm struggling to make any sense of it. I'm struggling to understand if Dujon Sterling's fit enough to go, make the trip. Why is he not fit enough to start? I'm struggling to understand why you go and make significant expenditure layout on guys like Proper, experienced guys, Proper and Cherney, and you leave him on the bench. I don't know what he's been watching at the weekend, if he's assessed that Tom Lawrence was deserving of a starting place in the number 10 position, which seems to have done. And, as Scott's already said, McCausland's just been plucked out of thin air, and Scott Wright did what Scott Wright does at the weekend, which is a kind of fairly consistent 5.5, 6 out of 10. So we did say that we thought this was going to be difficult for Rangers. I'm looking at the team. I just think it's just cranked up a level.
I don't even think it's as bad as Tom Lawrence's performance is. Do you think, Scott, it's as much to do with sacrificing that number 10 position and having Sterling in there and going with a flat 3 in midfield for this away game?
Well, exactly. I mean, me and Keith spoke last night, and we thought he would tighten up the midfield. We thought maybe Tom Lawrence would be a luxury that he maybe couldn't afford away from home to Dynamo Kiev in a game of this magnitude. But he's clearly looked at him at Tynecastle and thought he did okay, so I'll go with him again. And listen, in terms of Proper and Cherney and stuff, I mean, the manager will no doubt, if you questioned him on that, he would no doubt say these guys aren't ready, they're not up to speed to get thrown in, they can't play 90 minutes. But I tend to agree with Jacko. I mean, the size of this game and what's at stake for Rangers and the ramifications if it doesn't go their way, at some point you need to take a bit of a gamble. I mean, surely Cherney is fit enough for at least 45. I mean, Proper has had a full pre-season with FC 20 and played friendly games. Surely he's ready for an hour.
Scotty, Cherney was playing in the Euros just a few weeks ago. He's fit.
It seems to be saying because he's the 4-week holiday, suddenly he's not ready. He's not ready to play.
Right.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
But
surely that doesn't apply. But surely that doesn't apply to Proper.
Who did have a
Has he
full
not-
pre-season.
He's had a full pre-season, hasn't he?
Well, last night, I mean, it was slightly bizarre, but I mean, the manager was going on about how Cropper's had a difficult time the last couple of days because of Brexit and the amount of forums he's had to fill in.
Yeah. And moving house and looking for schools and all that. But, I mean,
one of the strangest reasons for not being ready to play. That affair.
Brexit.
Aye. So, I don't know. As I say, I think Keith's right. You're signing these guys. I mean, all summer, Clement has spoken about signing guys that are ready to play in the first team. Cropper and Cherny so far are the two that are properly ready. I suppose you could argue Connor Barron as well, but those two are the ones that you look at, experienced, been round the block. No, they would be ready to come into a tie like this, and yet here we are, and none of them have made it.
Let's get it right. Let's be brutally honest. If you looked at that starting 11 and it was the end of last season, you'd think that was a reserve side. That was a side that he's put out, you know, because there's been a bunch of injuries and it's winding down, and it was a game that didn't matter.
Yeah.
That's what that starting 11 screams that. It's a second-rate starting 11 for a game that couldn't be of bigger importance.
Yeah.
I'm actually quite shocked by it.
I should say we've had plenty of comments in ahead of the team coming out. I doubt that any of these people writing in will be any happier seeing the starting 11. Barry Barlow here saying, how many more chances are Rangers going to give Scott Wright? 4 managers have really used him. He had a chance to shine against Hearts, but was dire once again. He must be sold. And Willie Mercer here saying, Clement's desire to have the fans behind him and back his rebuild will fail spectacularly if he continues to try and convince these fans that Wright and Matondo aren't good enough.
Just on Scott Wright, Daniel.
Aye.
Thing. I mean, there's a couple of teams have shown an interest in Scott Wright this summer. He's got a year left in his deal with Rangers. A couple of championship clubs in England, and for what I hear, Rangers have rebuffed that because they want to keep him. You know, they think he's a useful squad player. They think he fills the Scottish quota. You know, what fans will think of that, I'm not too sure. But that seems to be the situation. I don't think Scott Wright's going to be going anywhere in this window.
And Stephen Leonard's written in saying, if Proper is fit, play him. It's a Champions League qualifier we're talking about here, and this is what he was signed for, which kind of touches on what you guys are saying.
Yeah, and of course this team is spearheaded by Scott's favourite, Cyriel Dessers. That was interesting. I thought, I'm sure I recognised a familiar voice in that press conference last night. You nearly had Clement and Big Ballaghan swinging for you.
I can't believe I'm about to unmask myself here live, Hotline live. If you look closely, state of my lip, I promise this is a cold sore in my lip, and Big Phil didn't hit me by a left-hander last night. It didn't quite go to plan, put it that way. No, listen, in all seriousness, you know, I was scared to look at my Twitter last night. I was taking that much dogs abuse, but it was a genuine question to Leon Balogun that, you know, Dessers being a fellow Nigerian, I just thought, get Balogun talking about Dessers. You know, how confident is he that this guy will soon start firing again this season, get the goals to take him to Champions League. I maybe worded it slightly clumsily, which is, I'd like to think it's unlike me, Jacko.
Correct.
Certainly, Big Leon didn't take too well to it. The manager had a wee dig at me as well, which is absolutely fine, but I stand by it in terms of, I think Dessers, still a lot of question marks over Dessers despite the 22, 23 goals, whatever it was he got last season. And I think most punters would have been hoping that there would have been another. No, I'm not saying Dessers should have been sold, but there'd have been another centre forward leading the line, getting into Champions League qualifiers. Yeah. But he's the man. As I say, that was the only point I was trying to make.
Scott, listen, your question was perfectly justified, to be perfectly serious for a minute. There has to be questions asked about Dessers. And do you know what? I'd go further than that. If Philip Clement isn't asking serious questions about Dessers, then it's an abdication of duty. And right now, it seems that he's happy to proceed with a striker who will miss far more chances than he'll tuck away. And that could be really costly in a situation like Rangers are about to find themselves in tonight.
Yeah, but Scott, that was a serious story from Lublin. we actually had a story earlier today. I couldn't believe it when I read it, that the VAR officials have changed for tonight. UEFA have dropped them because they were pulled over by police, drunk driving, carrying a road sign out. They're unconfirmed reports. Somebody's trying to check out just now that you were also in that car. No, can you confirm it? Hang on, I can get a quote for you right now. The news team are working on this.
I can exclusively reveal I'm trying to find out where they were that they got that motto that they started trying to steal road signs for. Because believe me, I was hunting for places last night and couldn't.
It's a classic Alan Partridge. Alan Partridge was meant to be in VAR tonight. He's pulled out along with, what was her name? Gildan? No, it wasn't Gildan. Whatever her name was.
Did you watch that episode, Scott?
I didn't know. I didn't. Somebody texted me about it today, but I've not seen it.
Is that right? Anyway, but you weren't in the car, and you weren't driving the car. You were nowhere.
I can confirm I wasn't in the car. Couple of pints last night and up the road to my bed after the press up.
With the road sign saying Warsaw 35 miles.
Scott, I know. Sorry, go on, Gav.
Scott. No, it's just that the replacements have been brought in also from Poland, but they're up to scratch. Yeah, you think they'll be okay?
Well, I hope so. I mean, I'm in all seriousness, I'm slightly surprised that the VAR officials are from Poland, given obviously Kiev play all their home games here. I don't know, maybe that's just me. But, I mean, I know the referee and stuff is for Lithuania. That have went with the Polish VAR officials. So listen, let's hope there's no VAR controversy tonight. Good thing is it will get me these two drunk guys will probably get me a good intro tonight for my match report. So that's good.
Scott, I know you're pressed for time. Before we let you go, Robert Jeffrey's written in saying Kiev are definitely favourites, but in Europe you just never know with us. Nobody gave us a chance against Dortmund, Belgrade, Braga, Leipzig, Prague and Betis. I know none of us have seen any more of Dynamo Kiev than a couple of highlights, but what's your prediction for tonight?
I think Rangers might lose narrowly. I don't think it'll be a heavy one, but I think they'll have work to do at Hampden in a week's time. And you've touched on it there. We were speaking about it today. I think the key thing here is how good are Dynamo Kiev. None of us really know. We've seen the highlights of the Partizan Belgrade game. We know they put 9 past them, so they must be decent. They've obviously got an attacking threat, but are they really that good? If they are, it's going to be a tough night for Rangers. But if that was a bit of if that flattered them, the two Partizan games, and they maybe weren't up to the standard, then of course Rangers have got a chance. And as I said last night, they just need to keep it alive, getting back to Hampden next week.
Mm-hmm. Scott, thank you very much. Enjoy the game tonight, and safe travels for when you're coming up the road.
Thank you. Cheers, boys.
Enjoy the game. Have a safe flight home. And you find that bar that those VAR officials were in, because you've earned it tonight.
Don't worry, I'll find it tonight, Gav.
You'll snuff it out.
Just make sure you stick to Uber. Don't get behind the wheel.
You're Scott.
I was just going to say, I think Scott made a very good point there. I think that is the key point, is that we don't know how good Dynamo Kiev are. 9-2 on aggregate, you immediately think, they must be world beaters. But I remember the night of that first leg, there was a few clips coming up on Twitter, and some of the goals that Partizan Belgrade conceded were comical. It's worth remembering, actually, that Partizan Belgrade did take the lead that night. Mm-hmm. So Kiev obviously shown a bit of character to then come back and win by that scoreline. But Partizan Belgrade didn't look great. Having said that, they've won all 3 of their league games this season and haven't conceded. So they must be decent. And as Scott said, to stick 9 past them over 2 games means they've clearly got something about them. And as we know, Rangers not looking great at all, especially on the evidence of Saturday. Although didn't concede to Hearts, I think 0-0. I think Rangers will be looking at just trying to get a 0-0 draw and get back.
Bite your hand off for a 0-0, right?
I think that could be the scoreline. 0-0.
I
think Rangers might just, I think they might just grind it out. And as Keith said,
I don't think that's a team that's designed or that's robust enough to get anything out. I'm going to go 2-0 to Dynamo Kyiv.
I must admit, when I was thinking about the game this morning and what I thought the scoreline maybe was 0-0, in my head I had
a different tactical plan.
I had Sterling in the middle. I was convinced he would have Sterling in the middle. How fit he is, we don't know. I mean, if he's fully fit, And as you say, he's there and he's on the bench, but if he's fully fit and he's not starting instead of Lawrence to pack that midfield, then it does seem
I'm going to
a bit
go.
mad.
I'm going to go 2-0 for Kyiv, and I think that's actually a scoreline that Rangers should grasp onto if they can get out of there with just 2 goals behind. I think they need to try and take it back to Glasgow for a meaningful match, for a meaningful second leg.
Yeah.
Any worse than 2, and that's just going to be an unpleasant experience all round.
Yeah.
The fans are going to turn up at Hampden where they don't want to be, angry, looking at a second leg that, you know, is pretty close to being irretrievable before a ball's been kicked in it.
Yeah.
So I think if Rangers can get out of town today with 2-0 defeat or anything better than that, looking at that starting 11, I think that'd be quite an achievement.
Yeah, and I know their manager touched on it last night, and their players speak about it often, as they have on any sporting events. You look at the Ukrainian athletes in the Olympics talking about it. I think that motivation, because of what they've gone through in the last few years, you know, what's happened in their country, there's no doubt that is a motivating factor for them. And Rangers are going to have to be up for the battle, because that's what you need to. You're going to have to match these players for the battling qualities. I was actually doing an interview with Alexei Mikhailchenko this morning. I think it might have been from the UEFA website, or maybe it was a Ukrainian media, and he was talking about the game. Obviously played Rangers Ukraine. I think he's a guest for I think Rangers have invited him over for the second game at Hampden, but he was actually highlighting a big miss for Dynamo Kiev, Maxim Diachuk, however you pronounce it. I hope that's the right pronunciation. Centre half, and he said that is a huge blow for them, which
It's interesting.
so I don't know how much significance will go into that, but or how well he played against Belgrade. He certainly played I'm sure he played in the 2 legs against them. He certainly played in that first one. So I checked the team when I read his name today. So he thinks that he's going to be a huge miss for them. So that being the case, you know, that might be a wee chink that Rangers could exploit.
Well, but you say being up for a battle, right? Look at that starting 11.
I know.
I keep going back to it.
I know.
Right, Jack Butland, if you were in the trenches, you'd take Jack Butland as your goalkeeper in that situation. Tavernier's been miles off it, and was miles off it again at the weekend, and looks like a player who's just counting down the hours now until the transfer window puts him out of his misery.
Yeah.
Suter, I like John Suter, big strong boy, puts his head on stuff, but there's mistakes in there.
Yeah.
Balogun is a guy you can hang your hat on.
Yeah.
He'll go into battle for you, no doubt about that. Yilmaz, he's the height of nonsense. So if you're going to have a battle with somebody, I'm not sure that he's your man.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Diamondi, really clever player on the ball, gets about, but he's physically. I'm not sure you need. I think as we were saying last night, I think he needs a minder in there, and that's why I thought Sterling would come in.
Yeah.
I think that Diamondi's best work could be done further up the pitch.
Yeah.
In an absolute battle in the middle of the park, I'm yet to be convinced that he's your man for that. Connor Barn, hang your hat on him in terms of energy and throwing himself into tackles and shutting people down. He'll give you exactly what Rangers will require in there. But he really needed, I think, a Sterling in there to help him with that workload.
Yeah.
Tom Lawrence, he's got lovely touches. He can score a goal. I don't think that you could really count on him going into a game like this. Might be wrong, might prove me wrong, might bang 2 into the top corner.
Yeah.
Because he's certainly capable. But I come back to this. If you're going into the trenches, you know, you're looking around that dressing room, you're thinking, guys, we are so under strength here.
Yeah.
We are going to have to leave everything on the line. There can't be a missing 1% of attitude from anybody in that starting 11 tonight.
No.
I'm sorry, I don't see it in that team.
Yeah. No, couldn't agree more.
Well, listen, there's been plenty more comments coming in, and I should say, if you're watching, please get involved. Hit us up in the comments section below, as the kids say. Alistair Ramage agrees with you, Keith. He's saying a fear Tavernier will cost us tonight. And this one from Rob Jones, if I can find it. He says, even if Clement wins tonight, I still question his abilities. The team lacks structure, and his insistence on using Scott Wright while sidelining Haji is problematic. And how about this one as well? Actually, I'll throw 3 at you at once. David Skinner. Watched the Dundee derby and was impressed by the Dundee player Luke McCowan. He looks a good player, used the ball well. Why are Rangers not looking at him? What do you think of that?
I'm sorry, we're just having a technical blackout in here at the minute.
Yeah. just to go to take your first point, Daniel, on the Tavernier one. Yes, I agree with Keith, and I agree with the caller. But if Sterling isn't fit and or not fully fit, and that's the assumption we're making is why he's not playing in midfield, it doesn't really leave Philip Clement with many more options, does it? I mean, who else is he playing right back if he can't play Sterling?
Yeah.
So I don't know who else. He's got no option but to play James Tavernier, really.
Yeah, I'll come back to this though, Gavin. Say there has to be a better planning going into the close season so that you don't leave yourself in this situation.
Yeah.
It's actually ridiculous that Rangers have left themselves in this situation.
Yeah.
There's a real lack of forward planning.
Yeah.
You know, we've understood and we've talked about it. And it's probably the correct thing to do was to enter just two-pronged sort of transfer strategy.
Yeah.
Where you want to bring in younger players with an eye to the future and sell-on fees. But first and foremost, Rangers had a responsibility to get themselves ready for this
game,
and they're nowhere near it.
And we're talking about £40 million, Daniel, the figure, for getting to the group stage, and that's fine.
It's actually worth more than that, Gav.
Yeah, or maybe more. But even that, I mean, that's obviously the dream scenario. But, I mean, let's not forget that this tie alone is worth around sort of £4.5 million, isn't it, just to get into the playoff now? That's big. That's significant money.
There's a transfer fee.
That's significant money for Rangers, to get through these two games and to be so underprepared for them. As Keith says, it's unforgivable. It's just terrible planning. And you're talking about, it could be 2-0 tonight. You think it might be 2-0 if Dynamo Kiev win comfortably. The tie is irretrievable before the second leg. I mean, remember, Rangers are going for their first game at Hampden against Motherwell on Saturday first. Before that game against Kiev, fans, as we touched on in one of the hotline lives that we did last week, fans are already raging. The mood is even worse. The anger levels have increased because of the 0-0 draw against Hearts. Whatever happens tonight, I mean, Saturday could end up being toxic.
Well, and again, funny that the name came up there, Yanis Haji.
Mm-hmm.
We mentioned last night, Gavin, it was inconceivable to me that you're going into a game of this importance, of this magnitude, and you're going in with a skeleton squad, and you've got a guy there that was playing at the Euros a couple of weeks ago, the last man standing from Scottish football in that competition. Whether you like him, whether you think he's a long-term guy, or you'd rather get shot and bring in a few quid from him or for him during this window to finance other activity, it beggars belief that he's not at least on that bench tonight. It just beggars belief.
I heard that and I hear where you're coming from, but where do you stand on if you've had the conversation, if he knows, if you're accepting that he's going and he's accepted that he wants to go, do you think you don't have that conversation when they had it and you sort of hang on to him and string him along and to play him in a game?
Rangers are paying his wage.
Oh, you think? But
Rangers are paying his wage. He's sitting playing against Middlesbrough's second string.
But if you've had that conversation with him and he knows he's leaving, the club knows he's leaving, what kind of performance might you get? Is that not also risky where is his head?
I don't know. Apparently he was the best player on the park in that game against Middlesbrough yesterday, so his head can't be that far.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
unless you do that, unless you do say, look, we had that conversation earlier in the transfer window. You're going to go. We know, but by the way,
go with a bonus.
Go and give us one. Yeah, just give us one.
It's all about the finances now, and go and make yourself a nice big fat Champions League bonus. Get involved in that team and go and do something, and go and show. By the way, if Fiorentina is sniffing or anybody else for that matter, get yourself out there on the pitch and showcase what you can do.
But what they might have been better doing is not having that, not making it so clear to them.
I don't think they should have had a conversation.
Because
conversation they shouldn't have had like this time last year. Because what it meant was that we want you out to make room in the squad to bring in Sam Lammers. So again, you wonder. Listen, I'm conscious of the fact that we're being really downbeat here, and there's still about half an hour to go before
That's
kick
fair
off.
enough. Look, I look forward to
and maybe
tomorrow
Rangers do
night.
get the result tonight.
I look forward to discussing Dynamo Kiev now, Rangers 2, goal from Lawrence, goal from Wright. In fact, 3-0, we'll throw in McCausland goal. Yeah,
Dessers.
yeah, Dessers.
Well,
Just for Scott's benefit.
Look, at the danger of being even more downbeat, we've got plenty of live comments coming in. Again, thank you very much. Glasgow Rangers Nation, who is watching live on YouTube, he agrees with kind of what you're saying there, Keith. We are still paying these players lots of money. We should be using them. And he goes on to say, the team is absolutely awful. How can you start Tav ahead of Sterling, right ahead of Czerny? It makes no sense. It's one of the weakest Rangers teams I've seen in years. So I don't think it's just us that's been downbeat. I think Rangers fans
are
fully aware.
Daniel, I looked at the reactions on Twitter just before we came on when the team was posted by Rangers. I mean, some of the comments were. I mean, I saw somebody saying that's as bad a team. That team's as bad as anything that lined up. During the lower division, during the time in the lower division. Maybe that's a bit extreme.
That's a bit
I'm sure that's a bit extreme, but yeah.
I tell you what, see for a manager that's just signed a new 4-year contract, that's almost tantamount to a resignation letter, that team.
Yeah.
Because if Clement, he's been here 10 months, if he doesn't understand what comes next on the back of a really bad European result and or performance, followed, as you said, by a league opener, you're already 2 points behind your city rivals in the league. People are writing them off left, right and centre. I understand the desire to portray clarity and certainty and a unified front in terms of this is where the club's going to go. But people are being very naive here if they think that this situation can deteriorate from where it already is and that there won't be victims. There won't be casualties along the way. And top of that list, I'm afraid, you're looking at the manager who ultimately the buck will stop there. Whether or not people say give him time, it's all right, he's a long-term project, he's got a 4-year deal. Rangers fans simply won't tolerate it.
No. Look, as we say, okay, we're looking at the worst case scenario here, but I mean, there is a situation where in 2 weeks' time here, and certainly going towards that Old Firm game, to look if they went out to Kiev, if there was a stumble against Mullow or Ross County the following week before they go to Celtic Park, you could be in the situation that they went. In fact, even the worst situation, at least Michael Beale get through a qualifying round, but it could be the exact same scenario as it was 12 months previously, where the fans were howling at Michael Beale after that Old Firm defeat. It could be a similar situation. It could be.
A couple more upbeat comments. Tony Chorley, I hope Scottish teams do well in Europe. We need them to do well.
We do.
We do. That is a very fair point. We all do. And Stephen Devery, come on Rangers and win this one this evening. Right. Obviously, we'll be back tomorrow with Rangers reaction. But before we go tonight, Keith, I know we've talked about Matt O'Reilly to death, but your story last night on the Hotline Live that, you'd been told by a very... what's the word?
An impeccably placed source.
An impeccably placed source that Brighton were in fact not in talks for Matt O'Reilly. It's got a very strong reaction on the Hotline Live. I'll throw a couple of these at you. Michael Thomas, it's a downgrade if he goes there. No chance of winning silverware, no involvement of Europe. He can do better than Brighton. Charles here saying, Matt said he was happy. Celtic don't need the money. Why sell? Matt Gill simply saying, please stay, Matt. John Lee taking a different tone. Brighton have got the money, so I think it's the club he's going to. I think it will be around 30 million with add-ons. Don't know if John knows something that we don't. And Martin Gill finishes off by saying, Van Dijk didn't become a £75 million player at Southampton. Celtic are quite correct. I think he means to hold out for more, but I'm not sure. Is there any? Has it moved on at all, Keith, the story around Matt O'Reilly?
No, it hasn't. And I think, as we've been a couple of times with various situations during this transfer window, it's a watching and waiting sort of brief just now. Keep hearing about other potential suitors from England's Premier League. Obviously, there's been no shortage of clubs linked across Europe. As we said, I think at the end of last week, this is the week where it will really start to gather a bit of pace. As I said, my source adamant this time yesterday that Celtic hadn't actually entered into official club-to-club discussions with Brighton. That doesn't mean there can't be bank channeling along the way someplace, and it certainly doesn't mean, or it certainly wouldn't preclude Brighton from opening that conversation or lodging a bid of some sort. I rather suspect there's something coming from Brighton, but I think they might be one of a number of English Premier League clubs that, it's like watching the Olympics. Once they come onto that final bend, they're jostling for positions. It's a sprint to the line. I expect there might be one or two English Premier League clubs in that race.
Stephen Mohair. Sorry, go on, Gav.
No, I was just going to say, I can't help but agree with the point that was made earlier about Brighton. It should be aiming higher.
Well, Stephen Mohair has written in saying exactly that. I'd be astonished if Matt O'Reilly's tempted to leave for Brighton.
Yeah.
If he stays and plays in the Champions League matches, it could be Bayern or Barcelona coming in from. Do you agree with that, Gav?
Well, you look at Atletico Madrid. I mean, when you think of, there's a club of that stature. That's what I was when you first read Brighton and you think Atletico Madrid. That's what he could have had, or even Inter Milan. Any of these teams, it's just a bit sexier, isn't it, than Brighton?
But Brighton are a really attractive football team,
are
playing in the best league in Europe, and they'll be able to offer a wage that Celtic can't look at. So these things have to be weighed up. I happen to agree. I think you're looking at Matt O'Reilly and you're thinking you're waiting on one of the top six in the English Premier League coming in for him. Because, and we discussed previously on here, when he moved to Celtic in the first instance, I was told at the time that he was really high up in Liverpool's list of potential next big things because of his data and all the kind of Moneyball statistics that they put together. These guys, Matt O'Reilly was the top of the list at Liverpool. So, and that was a couple of years ago, and he's only improved since then. So it wouldn't surprise you if one of those clubs did make a move. But you have to add to that the caveat that so often we've seen with these clubs, they'll sit, they'll wait, they'll monitor, they'll allow a player to leave the Scottish League to go to a middle,
like Southampton is
a mid-range or lower of the Premier League side, and wait to see what he looks like for a season in there. And then they're going by, and they don't actually mind if it costs them an extra £20 million because they've got it.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Aye. One other thing that I need to pick up on from last night, Keith, we got a bit of stick from Aberdeen fans for not mentioning their game against St Johnstone. Of course, we were live before it.
Well, that's your fault. You're the guy that's asking the questions. I'm only here following your lead. I thought that myself. I thought that's it. It's actually a bit outrageous you haven't brought up the Aberdeen game. But
listen, we're going to have words off camera tonight, Keith. So don't rush away anywhere. Obviously, Aberdeen.
You're brave now. You're not even in the office.
Aberdeen, they obviously won last night. An historic start for Jimmy Thielen. 5 competitive wins. And apparently it's the first time in Aberdeen's long and illustrious history that a manager has won his first 5 competitive matches. I mean, it's very early days, but do you guys like what you see? Do you like the cut of Thielen's jib?
Yeah. There's good vibes coming off Aberdeen.
That was good.
There really is. And I actually think they're going to have a really good season. And I actually think it's going to be so good for the Scottish game because they're one of our major clubs. They certainly should be. And if he can get them, the travelling support that Aberdeen take across the country is outstanding when they're in good times. When they're in bad times, there's still a solid fan base there. But when they're motoring, they really engage. The support travels with them, and it's just a nice sort of addition to the melting pot at the top end of the table, and that's where I think Aberdeen are going to be this season. I genuinely think that they're in the hunt in terms of, I've already said that Rangers and Hearts might be fighting out for second place. Well, do you know what? Aberdeen might be in that argument as well.
Yeah, well, it could be fascinating between Aberdeen and Hearts. Encouraging start from Hearts on Saturday. They look to business. Definitely, Daniel, Aberdeen last night looked good. Couldn't agree more with Keith in terms of attendances that they take. In fact, it's been an encouraging start. If you look, I know it's Europe and there was a bit of historic history around St Mirren's one, but the crowd at Rugby Park for their first leg against Cercle Bruges, and then St Mirren for their second leg against Valur. Great to see
People are excited.
both stadiums packed out.
People are
Yeah.
excited.
It just shows you the potential. Well, what these clubs, if you just get a bit of success.
And by the way, Dundee United, the way they
Of course,
they
yeah,
hit the ground running at the weekend as well.
Another
There is genuine cause for excitement all across the country, but I particularly think that Aberdeen are going to offer something this season. I like everything that I've heard from Jimmy Taylor. I like the way he sets his team up. I like the way he wants to bring in a really attacking, aggressive style of football. The fans will lap that up so long as the results follow the performances, and I'd rather suspect they're going to.
Yeah, but the best bit of the whole night was that ball from Nielsen through to McGrath for the
Yeah.
What a pass.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
What a pass.
Kevin Roxburgh's written in saying Telin is how it's pronounced. I think that's directed at
And
me.
it's meant
So
to be Jimmy, isn't it? It's not Jimmy.
Jimmy Telin. So thanks for that, Kev. James, we appreciate that, and I think that's a perfect note. That's a perfect note for us to finish tonight's hotline on. I'd like to take this opportunity to defend this tracky top. It's actually from Fred Perry, and it's absolutely class, despite what Keith says. And we will be back tomorrow night. If you want to get involved in the discussion, you can email us at hotline@dailyrecord.co.uk and have your say.
I'm going to call you Fred Perry.
I thought it was Ali G. Ali
Booyaka.
Guys, I wish it. Well, it's always a pleasure.
See, we'll stop you with this nonsense.
And if Scott isn't on tomorrow night, there'll be loads of questions asked.
Listen, forget the Rangers team. There's going to be big changes at the Hotline Live. There you go. Big
Good, bring them
changes
on.
in the starting lineup.
Bring them on.
Scott McDermott's going to be a Polish slammer. When he finds that bar with those two.
Thanks very much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, Daniel.
Cheers.